All right, well, welcome back to the channel. My name is Kevin.
I'm Tarsha.
And this is, of course, Conversations with the Crawleys, where we have conversations about faith, family, relationships, and we do recaps, reviews, and commentary on some of our favorite TV shows. This one is all about Married at First Sight, Boston edition, and we are near the end, y'all. All right, so because this is content that you enjoy, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like, request notifications.
Share.
She's excited to tell y'all to share. All right. And we will see you in the comments. So again, we appreciate each and every one of you. We're near the end of this 14th season of Married at First Sight. We'll probably do a video a little later about just our predictions for who's actually going to stay and who's actually going to go, or break up, divorce, all that stuff. All right. So we're 8-9 days away?
Yeah, from decision
day. They've come back from their Vermont trip. So let's just we'll dig into each couple. Michael and Jasmina. She does notice that he's opening up.
Right, because this is the week where they talk about their childhood.
Right.
And how a lot of times your childhood obviously shapes you. How your family function and all that good stuff comes into play. So they went to Jasmina's.
Yeah, they went to her neighborhood
first, where she grew up, in her home.
They went to her school.
That was the last time her dad and mom
were together.
Yeah.
And she was surprised that the playground was still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if any schools that are still there, still standing, the playground disappears, but...
I mean, maybe she's saying the original...
Maybe the original teeter-totter slide, seesaw, whatever is still there.
I mean, because if it's the old metal stuff, that stuff lasts forever.
Yeah. But she talks about even the teacher that had the most impact on her, and was kind of her safe space, and how that, because Michael kind of was like, do you think that had an impact on you? Would you be where you are now? And she's like, you know what? I probably wouldn't have been. Right. So, just the importance, the impact of having that teacher that was in her corner and provided a safe space for her for learning was important.
And that she said that's the only place where she felt like she was truly loved. She felt like her stepmom didn't really love her.
Yeah.
And being there, it was something to look forward to, where she could escape. And a lot of kids find that, right? When they can't find that at home, they find that at school.
Hopefully, yes.
Yeah.
And remember, I told y'all, the trauma that we had not been addressing, that had not really been uncovered, was her trauma of everything that went on with her and her parents and that whole situation. So at least we start to see that how she's at least somewhat dealing with it, managing it. Right. How she at least had a safe space to kind of help during that season. Right.
But that's where we're trying to figure out how Jasmina and Mike can break through getting more physical, intimate with one another, because she keeps saying that she doesn't feel anything. Right. But we don't see the interactions where they're making those things have sparks to them.
Taking advantage of those moments where it's like, okay, this is the perfect time to hug. More than just a platonic hug, right?
Right.
More, so they do hold hands. They do some things. So it's just a little more and taking more initiative. But they even go to his old neighborhood. They talk about even, his relationship with his mom.
Right.
And how that was, because he left there after, I guess, she died.
Yeah, because she was fighting cancer for the second time.
Right.
And so him just remembering times where maybe he didn't want to go to church with her, and now wanting to appreciate having those times, really cherishing the opportunities that he had with his mom before she passed away.
Yes.
So, and then them reading these letters to each other and sharing those moments. This was the most saddest family episode I've ever had. I was just like, oh my God. Yeah. It was very emotional. Yeah. Hearing the depth of some of the trauma in their past. Yeah. So.
And then Dr. Pepper.
That's a different show.
Visit, So she visited. She also visited this week again. Very good to see the experts a lot, involved a lot in this season. And they again, the intimacy question begins to come up,
because she said she want to have kids with him. I don't know how you
and a
do
year and a
that.
half. And Dr. Pepper's like, you know that does kind of involve a little intimacy there.
Right. It includes sex. So y'all got to be kissing to get the sex. So and that's what I was like, where's the disconnect? Right. If you feel like I can have children with this man,
right,
that means you should be able to do other things with him if you feel like you can have kids with him. So it's kind of,
it's weird.
It's odd.
Right.
Like,
now, as we were just talking though, I wonder if part of their hesitancy has to do with how close they are to decision day. In other words, well, hear me out. I think that, and I'm not saying that this is what's happening, but just my thoughts. Maybe part of the hesitancy on both parts could also be the fact that they're so close to decision day, they don't want to maybe invest or take that next leap of faith, that next step, if they're uncertain about how the other person's going to respond on decision day. Possible, I don't know.
It's not, they don't have to have sex, but they need the cuddle and the kiss. Like,
true.
That has to come naturally. And she's saying she ain't feeling nothing. So
I think she doesn't know how. Well, I'm not going to say she doesn't know how to feel, but I think that she's looking for feeling, or she's looking for fireworks.
Yeah.
When that may not be what is initially the feeling. She just need to
make smoke.
Yeah.
Can we just make some smoke?
Yeah.
So if we can get a little
sticks together.
Right. And then we get a smoke and then there'll be a spark and then it grow from there. I'm like, maybe he should walk around with no shirt on or something. Like, you need to, because she says he's physically attractive.
They are both attracted to each other.
So if you're attracted, maybe we need a little smoke. So maybe he need to walk around with no shirt on. I'm trying to help her. Help him.
But I do want the fact both of them have grown from where we saw them.
Oh yeah,
in the first couple of weeks.
Their intimacy level,
they are
on an emotional,
a complete 180 from where they were.
And you can tell they put the work in.
Yes.
So
because they even said they haven't really had any arguments for the last 3-4 weeks.
So because they've been really communicating what their needs are.
Right.
So again, we just got to put in those needs. Now, if they said, I don't have to be physically intimate at any point, but I can continue afterwards. Maybe some of the pressure could help them to move forward. But they got to make some smoke.
They got to do something.
We need some smoke signals or something. I mean,
get your Luther Vandross CD.
Hey, oil it up or.
I got a baby make. What
you got?
My playlist.
Baby making tape.
My baby making playlist. Listen.
That you can't even find a cassette player. You get it to them on Spotify.
Listen, get you Spotify, Apple Music. Let me know. I'll share it with you, bro.
Man. He's not trying to make a baby right now. He's just trying to get a little something.
Listen.
Something.
He needs something. He needs Luther Vandross.
You gotta go old school with it.
Some Teddy Pendergrass.
Some Levert.
Hey.
Yeah, drop some comments in. We will be on your baby mixtape. We will be on there.
We might even put some songs out that we have.
Johnny Gill.
Yeah.
Maybe we should do that for our anniversary. May's our anniversary month. Maybe we can put some.
Okay.
What? On our conversation?
Yeah, I got
Crawley.
I get what you're saying.
Instagram.
Okay.
Throw some songs out there.
Help y'all out. All right. Steve and Noy. Yeah. On to the next couple. Steve and Noy, they go to his neighborhood.
Right.
Go to his mom's house.
Right. Which used to be the house. Like Steve had the house on the block. He had the block parties at his house. As Steve says, he had all the friends.
I'm telling you, Steve.
Sneaking out the house.
Steve's background's a little different. I've seen Steve's background before.
Steve was named what? The famous?
Most likely to do something or...
No, he was like favorite dancer or something in high school. Right. Something with dancing. So.
And Steve was making beats back in the day.
Steve was producing on the side.
Steve might got producer credits. Listen, I'm telling y'all, Steve got a little chunk of change somewhere. Steve, I think, come from money.
Oh my God!
I'm telling y'all, Steve's background before?
Steve was like, this was the place. Everybody came over my house. We had parties here. And so Noah was like, hold on, were you popular? He was like, oh yeah.
You got along
He was
with
like,
everybody?
I got along with everybody. People come over my house on the block. Me and my friend would make beats in the basement. And it's so like we were selling tapes like he was Master P.
He was
Master P
out
of
the trunk.
Massachusetts.
Playing CDs in Waltham, Massachusetts.
I was like, hey, do what you do, Steve.
He was cruising down the street, hearing
Rapper
their CDs
Steve.
playing throughout, banging throughout the neighborhood.
Oh my gosh. I was like, okay. So you see where his free spirit comes from.
Right.
And he feels like he can make money out of anything because his parent never held him back.
Right.
You can see the support. Even the mom was like, oh, I haven't heard this song in
The
a
mom
long
singing along
time.
to it. She getting
sung
her
it. She's
groove on.
like,
She
hey,
yeah.
get down. Move your hips to get down. I'm done. I was like, I'm so done right now. So
Steve's going through his house. The other thing is that, his room now is converted to for the grandkids and everything.
Right.
And he points out that one of his stuffed animals from when he was a kid. And Noah's like, oh, how sweet. But then in the aside, she's like, it's weird that a grown man has a... It's not like it was his stuffed animal that he still has.
Right.
He's just like pointing out
his apartment.
This was my stuffed animal I had when I was a kid.
Right.
There's stuff, if my mom still lived in the same house that I grew up in, there's probably stuff I would be able to go back and be like, oh yeah, this was that.
Right.
So
like I had a blanket that was mine for childhood. Like even my grandma put a new backing on it because it was something that she had created.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's things that you just keep, but you don't,
Right. Now what's weird is I had one, and you know this story. I had one young lady who, way back in the day, I dated, gave her a stuffed animal, and we reconnected 20-something years later on Facebook, and she mentioned how she still had it and gave it to her child.
Yeah.
That's weird.
That's weird. That's so weird.
I mean, this was like, I was 12, 13 when I gave her this. That's weird. All right. So anyway.
You just got that effect on people, babe.
Okay. That's weird. All right. And if she's watching, that's weird. All right. They do go dancing. So she takes him dancing. And so it's kind of allowing him to kind of see into her world a little. Steve got some moves. Steve
bringing out the high school moves on there.
I was half expecting Steve to start spinning on his head,
going to a breakdance,
B-boy stance and everything. But then they talk, and she kind of does acknowledge that some of the arguments and pushback that she's been giving does stem, and basically, I think I kind of said this last week, does kind of stem from her wanting to maintain her identity in so many words. That it still is kind of her way of, she said kind of independence, and I think what she's getting at is who she is. She still wants to hold on to who she is and still maintain that.
I think it's her discovering how she learns how to do that and still be married. You can be an individual.
Absolutely.
And be married. And I think a lot of people struggle with that if they were learning just recently to even find her independence. Where she comments about living on her own for the first time and finding her little spot. And not losing that. And again, it's just her sharing that she couldn't express herself. And in dance, she could find that expression that she was looking for, and feel comfortable doing it through dancing and singing, and kind of letting herself go in that way. Which is good that she's opening up and kind of they're both sharing their families because they are from two different ends of the spectrum.
Yes.
One parent is very supportive, share, do what you feel in your heart to do, and then one is like, no, we're not going to share your feelings, you got to be tough because the life is tough, so
so then they both have their letter. She writes her letter to her younger self, and he begins to kind of see where her vulnerability is and all those things. And then Dr. Pepper shows up for them.
And kind of going over with them about those areas where, they're expressing or not expressing why they can't express certain things. Or how she's responding. And that's when it comes up about her keeping her place. and them living separately.
Right.
And then Dr. Pepper's like, well, I live separately from my husband as well. When you old like that, y'all do things, whatever works for you. But she's like, when I was married for the first time,
they had kids.
I had kids.
Right.
So I lived with my partner.
Right.
But she's like, my second time around, I'm gonna be honest, we don't, but we find ways to keep us connected and kindle and whatever. You know, I don't know how her lifestyle.
If I remember correctly, and this is, I'm trying to remember, I think part of that is because she's a professor someplace. And he does something else someplace else.
Okay.
So I think that's why it is. I don't think it's just because she's like, they don't like living together. I think there's work reasons why they do that right now.
Do that. But again, she's like, you're going to have to find unique ways to show that you're married.
Right.
And that if you're not going to be actually living in the same house, how you're going to be connected.
Right.
And what that looks like for you. And I don't think Noi really wants that. I don't think she wants to live apart from Steve, but she has to find a way where she can keep her identity. Because I was like, I think you're leasing this place. So does that mean him moving in with you?
Right.
If you don't want to really let go of the place to feel better.
Right.
Because she keeps saying he doesn't have a job. Well, you do. If something doesn't work out, at least we're living in your spot.
Right.
And that might be something he can willing to do.
We'll see.
You know, it is a small spot, but we shall see.
We'll see. All right, then Mark and Lindsay. She starts off the episode basically. She misinterprets his statements of her being too much. She's like, he says, "Oh, you're too loving, you're too kind, you're too this, you're too that." No, what he was saying was, you need to pull it back a little because you're too touchy, you're too needy. He didn't say needy, but I'm saying that on his behalf. She is.
You speaking?
I'm speaking Marquise. Yes, I'm giving voice to Mark's frustrations, which is the frustrations y'all know. Y'all having them too every time they come on.
That's a lot. Like he said, he was trying to say at times you can be too much.
Yes,
and you don't know when to stop.
Right. And so Dr. Pepper visits with them. And his struggle is the ups and downs and the difficult arguments that drain him. He's like, literally like, look, I'm drained every time we have these conversations. And the issue comes up about the statement about hyper, right? The word hyper. And Dr. Pepper's like, yeah, that's not a nice word. He's like, but she also is like, okay, what do you mean by that? And he's like, look, I'm telling her to stop. I keep telling her, don't do this, don't do this. And, you know, she turns to Lindsay. Lindsay's like, oh, he's like, stop. Listen.
They both are playing. My thing is this, they don't communicate well.
Right.
When it gets to a point, I want you to stop. I'm like, I need you to stop.
And I think that's part of that is his desire to not create waves, which is why he's kind of like, stop. But at some point, she's got to recognize, stop.
When you go too far, like you want to play with your spouse, but at a certain point, you know, like, okay, then it's over.
Because one of the things early in our marriage I learned was, because I'm a jokester, I like to have fun, right? And one of the things I learned was that I can't do that all the time. Right. And so now we have fun. Right. But then I also like, okay,
I know where your boundary is.
Exactly.
There's a limit.
There's a limit. So, before that Southeast DC comes out on me.
Whatever.
All right. So.
Anywho. But it is like, it goes in her ear and it goes out the other ear.
Right.
Because Mark was like, okay, I'm tired of you telling me I don't know how to do something. Let me tell you something. I know how to love. I know how to be romantic.
Yep.
I know how to do things. I hear you. I refuse to do them, is what I got from it.
Right.
Because of the way you're treating me.
Right.
And the way you're coming at me, I withhold from you.
Right.
What makes you happy, because I'm not getting what I need to make me happy.
Right.
And I get that. I think it's hard for people to give what other people need when they don't feel like it's going to be reciprocated.
Right.
But at the end, it's more of how can I go ahead and release that, hoping that at some point my spouse will get where I'm coming from, and you can learn from it. Granted, they only known each other for
7 weeks now.
7 weeks now, and so everything is so concentrated that it can be very overwhelming quickly.
Right.
So hopefully she finally gets it in her head, because we find out as they keep talking that she's not realizing it's not about just her and her needs. It's about also reciprocating.
Right. But she ain't gonna get that.
I'm hoping she will.
You can hope all you want. She ain't getting it. Listen.
You gotta be positive.
I'm positive she's not getting it.
And people can change.
They can. She's not. All right. But then we find out Mark's cat.
Yeah, got
starts having issues. So
I don't know. When they say reach his lung, I'm assuming maybe it's a form of cancer. Maybe.
Yeah, there's something that began to grow in his lungs. There's something that began to grow sore on his eyes.
Yeah.
So he had to essentially having to put the cat down, put the cat to sleep.
Euthanize the cat.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is what I'm saying. This is the second season where Pet had to be put to sleep,
right,
because of being ill. And I'm like, this is sad, So again, of another sad episode, someone losing. It was his first cat that he owned.
I think they said he's had it for 14 years.
Yeah.
So that's a long time.
That's a long time for a cat.
It's not like a goldfish that, dies every 5 days.
Goldfish.
Right?
So, but I feel for him, you know, and Lindsay was there.
She was there for him. Yep.
And those are the things you're supposed to be there for people, right?
Yeah, I was getting a little irritated when she kept moving the cat in his arms when he was holding the cat. And she kept adjusting it and moving it around and everything. It was like,
it's not a
let
baby.
the man sit with his cat, rub his head, rub his neck, comfort him, console him, but stop moving that doggone cat. Let the cat lay in his master's arms and be good. I was getting annoyed.
She was treating it like a baby.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a grown cat. I get it. The cat's hurting.
Yes.
He wants to comfort the cat. And it looked like it had his claws. That's another thing. So I get her covering the paws.
Yeah.
Because they can they get into your clothes. Like you said, had a cat. So.
But she adjusted it once.
Right.
Cool. She adjusted it a second time. Okay. Third, fourth, and fifth time. Sit your behind over there. Let me hold my cat. Have my last few moments. I'm good.
Yeah. Next couple.
All right.
I don't know what else to say about
and then they go she takes him into the woods.
Yeah. So I don't know if where she used to live, she don't want to take him there, but it was supposed to represent her backyard, because her backyard was just woods and the swamp. And she was talking about how that was her escape as a child. And that's why they were there and sharing her experience. So that's what I gathered from that.
Yeah, I didn't get it. All right. But yeah, he came to a point, he was like, I'm not going in there.
Oh, yeah, because she was about to go into
She was going under bushes and
overgrown trees. And I wouldn't either.
Listen.
He's like, where's the bench? Are we at a park? Where are we? It was like they're on the side of the road somewhere.
Mm-mm.
And she was like, keep walking with me. He's like, you know what?
Mm-mm. I would do anything for you, but that's not it.
It's like, I am not that guy.
Bridge too far. But then they go to his house growing up.
Yes.
His old neighborhood, and he starts, reminiscing about that. And of course, this is when they both are reading their letters to each other, or during, they both have read their letters to each other. But then he says he wants to live
in his parents'
old house, which evidently somebody else holds now.
Right.
So he wants to at some point buy that house again and live there.
Yeah. I'm with Lindsay. Lindsay was like, I'm not trying to live in the past.
Yeah.
She was like, nah, I'm not interested. I'll live near your old house.
Right.
But we don't have to live in your old house.
Right.
I agree with her.
Yeah. I mean, it would be different. Let me just say this. I think it might be different if the house was always, was still in the family. But the fact that he's like making it a goal to go buy the house back to move into.
Right.
It would be a different story, I think. For example, like let's say you and I, if we were still living in Chicago, if I was still living in Chicago, that's where we live. If my parents, left the house to me, I was already there.
Right.
When we got married, it would be like, hey, we can live here.
Right.
Doesn't mean that that's where we would live forever.
Right.
It might be the place that we move into first. But that's not my goal house. My goal house is not to live in the same house I grew up in all of my life. That's not my goal.
Right. Because even my parents, they was like, they could deed their house over to us if we was going to stay in Maryland. But we like, nah, we ain't staying in Maryland. No. But the mortgage would have been perfect.
Oh, yeah.
It would have been like cheaper than an apartment.
There's some houses that we lived in. I wish we could go back in by just to have and hold.
Right. So
yeah.
So I get it.
But
But I wouldn't purchase my parents' house.
All right. And then Katina and Elijah.
Yes. So Elijah,
he's still worried about the timeline.
Well, let's talk about. Didn't he take you to where he used to live?
Well, yeah, because he did go to where he grew up in the projects,
where they played football and kind of like his life being rough, and that him and his brothers never really had their own room because of the way it was situated there, and how he felt like that made him want to be successful and get his schooling and pay his bills off, so he will always have a place.
Yep.
And I mean, all those things make sense. I hear what he's saying there. And glad that she didn't make him feel judged about,
because she came from. He's like she grew up in the
suburbs. Listen, mom. So
some suburbs is just as rough
some suburbs
as the city. Listen,
some suburbs.
If you from Chicago, you know Maywood. We call Maywood the real hood because Maywood is not your typical nice cul-de-sac suburban area.
Right, but he felt because she did have her own room based off on what he said. She's like 5 bedrooms and 2 baths. So I think it's just always in his eyes. It was like he had it rougher.
Yes.
So but he felt comfortable enough to take her there, and she was appreciative for that.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember how much she shared about.
Well, she went to her church that she grew up in.
That's right. That's where
they went to. That's where she took him and talked about how it was a place for her. That she made friends. She had fun. All of her family went for a period of time, and even how she would want the kids to at least go there, and then they can make their own decision
when they get older. Because she felt like she's have her own personal relationship with God because of that. And everything her mom went through having cancer. So when she felt alone, she didn't have to be alone.
Right.
Church was like her place.
It was her safe place.
Her safe place.
Yeah.
So I felt like that was really good and something that they could talk about deeply about religion and how they want to raise their kids and different stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think that went well overall. Then that's when they met with Dr. Pepper.
So Dr. Pepper comes and Elijah talks.
Yes.
And talks. And talks. Did I mention he talks?
Yeah.
Because he talks the entire time.
Right. And then, she does chime in because he's concerned about the timeline.
Right.
About her going to school,
finishing up her degree.
And they wanting kids, and he wants to travel.
And his attention, because she even says he's needy.
That he needs a higher level
of attention. He needy.
And so I don't know what that means. I would like to hear a little bit more in depth what that means, because I'm don't understand where I get having to take on going to school, then going to nursing school. That's going to take up a lot of her time.
Right.
And then trying to have a child on top of that. That is a lot. And that takes your spouse to take on the majority of children.
And to support.
And doing all that stuff where they can't be there for everything or be, a lot of stuff you need them to be.
Right.
So I get that, but it's like, and it's fair. I would say it's fair for him to say, I don't know if I could do that and be that support for her and not stay married.
Yes, it's fair
like
at this stage because of who they are and how
Right.
they met and,
Right.
and where they're in. Yes.
Right.
I'll say, because for you and I,
Right.
we both got our degrees.
Right.
Our kids, granted, they were
young.
They were young. One was
right.
Finishing up grade school. The other one
Right.
was, just getting starting in grade school, whatever.
Right.
Middle school, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I did my master's, you took a lot of responsibility on with the kids and with everything.
Because when we had to do it together, it was hard.
Right.
For us both going to get our bachelors at the same time and trying to raise kids.
Right.
So even though I was thinking about my master's, I was like, well, we go ahead.
Do it at the same time.
I was like, we're not going to.
And even then, I was thinking about going and getting my doctorate, and you're like, no, you got to hold off until after at least we get these kids out of this. Right. And so so I think that those are conversations you have, but I think that it's a matter of whether or not he wants to make that commitment. Exactly. That's what if he can be supportive enough, because everything points to right now he wants to have 3 meals. He wants to have everything cooked clean, and he be the husband and she play the traditional wife duties. And it's like, no, if she's going to go and get this, there are going to be sacrifices on both sides to get that completed.
Yep.
Right.
And he was saying to the producers on the side, if it was him, he wouldn't stay married. He would focus on getting his schooling complete and not try to do everything. He was like, I will hunker down, be focused on my class. And he said, I wouldn't want to tell her that. I want her to stay with me. But at the same time, he said, I wouldn't stay married.
Yeah.
And so with that being a factor, I think sometimes because we saw our parents do things as single parents, we think, well, we can do it. And we can, but at the same time, it's hard.
Right. It's difficult.
And then when you have a partner and they ain't going to do their load, that becomes a problem.
Right. A whole problem. I just want to, y'all let us know what you think, because I'm noticing something with Katina. I notice, for me, it looks like the Katina that we met, in the first few episodes, as far as just her personality, her bubbly, if you will, that's gone. If you watch how she was sitting there when Elijah was talking, she looks drained. She looks almost like a shell of her former self, as we're watching this. So,
and I don't know, because she is in school and working full time.
Yeah.
And doing the production. That might be the thing that's draining her. Be. Now that we're trying to put everything together, I don't know.
We'll see.
I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
As maybe there's more things revealed.
It's possible. All right. So that's it for this review. Next week is kind of like the last week, and then the following week will be decision day. So next week it looks like they are meeting with their friends to kind of get that last minute counsel, that last minute, how things going. So it'll be interesting to see all of that and how that goes. All right. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts were. Let us know what we might have missed, and your thoughts on everything that we've kind of talked about, and anything else that you want to just throw down in there. All right. Have a great one. We'll see you next time. Be blessed.
Bye.